This was no legitimate court, it was a grotesque charade. A handful of men sat at a blood-stained table, deciding who would live and who would die in mere moments. When Lamble walked in, she was nearly floored by the appalling sight of dead bodies piled in the courtyard. They posed a few questions to her, and she maintained an astonishing calm in the face of terror. Then came the ultimate test. They demanded that she swear allegiance to liberty and equality while renouncing her loyalty to the king and queen. This was her last chance to escape with her life. Yet she stood her ground and firmly refused to betray her friend. "I will readily swear to the first," she stated defiantly, "but I cannot swear to the second. It is not in my heart." As a man beside her whispered, "Swear!" "If you do not swear, you are dead," she remained resolute, choosing not to betray her principles. Reports vary, but many recount her stating, "Whether I go sooner or later is of no concern to me. I have made the sacrifice of my life." The judge's verdict came swiftly. He proclaimed, "Let Madame be set at liberty," to anyone else. This may have seemed like a reprieve, but it was merely a secret signal, a coded message, intended for the mob lying in wait outside. It meant, "She is yours now." As they shoved her through the door, she was pushed directly toward her executioners. The moment she stepped into the courtyard, absolute chaos erupted. The ground was transformed into a gory slaughterhouse, littered with bodies as the mob descended upon her, their faces twisted with rage and bloodlust. What transpired next is a mixture of factual horror and ongoing speculation. Eyewitness accounts reveal that a small woman dressed in white stood alone before the mob just for a heartbeat. Then the first blow struck a pike or hammer hit her in the back of the head, sending her cap flying and her long blonde hair cascading down. A second blow landed devastatingly on her forehead, and she collapsed to the ground. What followed was a gruesome frenzy. The mob swarmed around her, stabbing and bludgeoning her to death with pikes and sabers. It was brutal, chaotic, and it ended in the blink of an eye. However, they weren't finished. They severed her head from her body, an ultimate act of degradation. They stripped her corpse bare, leaving it there, abandoned in the street. Her remains were never officially recovered. These stark facts represent the cold, undeniable truth. She was brutally murdered and decapitated simply because she chose to remain loyal to her friend. The horror of that reality is overwhelming enough. Yet the aftermath, the actions of the mob, and the myths that arose from this tragedy are even more grotesque. Before we explore the chilling journey that followed and separate the verifiable truths from the lurid fictions, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us delve into the dark corners of history, and you definitely won't want to miss what's next. The murder wasn't the end. The mob used Princess Lamble as a weapon against the Queen. They impaled her severed head on a pike and paraded it through the streets of Paris, aiming to force Marie Antoinette to witness what they had done. This was raw psychological warfare. When the mob arrived at the temple, they gathered beneath the Queen's window, clamoring for her to come out and behold the horrific display. Rumors even suggest they wanted her to kiss the lips of her friend. Inside, the royal family listened, paralyzed by fear. The king's valet recognized the severed head and grasped its dreadful significance. As Marie Antoinette inquired about the ruckus, guards rushed to block her view. It remains unknown whether she actually laid eyes on this horrifying spectacle. However, it is well documented that a guard bluntly told her, "They are trying to show you the head of Princess Lamble." Just hearing that grim news was enough to shatter her. Marie Antoinette let out a piercing scream and collapsed, losing consciousness under the overpowering horror. It is said that she wept all night, utterly devastated. The mob achieved their cruel goal, inflicting deep psychological trauma on the Queen. They murdered her friend as a means to torment the woman they truly loathed. The horrific imagery of her friend as head on a pike would haunt Marie Antoinette for the remainder of her life. The stark reality of this story is horrifying enough, but the myths that emerge from it are often even more disturbing. For centuries, people have clung to ludicrous and completely fabricated tales. Let's debunk some of the most prominent and grotesque myths surrounding this tragedy. One of the most persistent fabrications involves the sexual desecration of Princess Lamble's corpse. Stories circulated that she was raped, that her breasts were severed and her genitals mutilated. These claims are almost certainly false. Contemporary records, even from those who detested her, do not support any such allegations. These grotesque details were crafted later, mostly as royalist propaganda to demonize the revolutionaries. We even have documented evidence of the items found in her pockets, which indicates she was still fully clothed at the time of her death. Another outrageous allegation was that her heart was torn out and consumed. This too seems to be a fabrication invented to draw attention and create shock. There is no credible evidence to support this claim. Other myths are equally outrageous. One tale suggests that her severed head was taken to a hairdresser to be prettied up for the queen, an absurd fabrication that never occurred. Another fanciful story claims she concealed a secret message to Marie Antoinette in her hair, a charming notion without any basis in reality. And, as we've mentioned, the most enduring myth is that Marie Antoinette was forced to kiss the lips of Lamballe's severed head. Historical accounts firmly indicate that this did not happen, so why do these insane myths persist? The answers often reside in the realms of sensationalism and propaganda. Let's be honest, people are drawn to grotesque horror stories. But in focusing on these wild fabrications, we risk losing sight of the real woman at the heart of this astonishing tragedy. The killing of Princess Lamballe was not a state execution. It was a lynching, an act of ritualistic murder perpetrated by a mob that viewed her as a powerful symbol, not as an individual. Her death is one of the most infamous moments of the French Revolution. The verifiable truth surrounding her fate is disturbing enough. She was a woman whose only crime was loyalty, a loyalty that compelled her to return to a city engulfed in chaos. For that loyalty, she faced a sham tribunal, refused to abandon her principles, and was delivered into the hands of a savage mob that brutally beat her to death before decapitating her. Her severed head was transformed into a weapon of psychological torture, used to inflict further pain on Marie Antoinette. The chilling reality needs no embellishments. It is a deeply troubling account that reveals how swiftly political rage can extinguish empathy, how easily a crowd can morph into a death squad, and how one person's life can be reduced to a mere emblem of hatred. The story of Princess Lamballe serves as a sobering reminder of the profound human cost of revolution. It highlights the dangers when personal loyalty collides with political fury. We must confront the uncomfortable truth that the most horrifying tales aren't always fabricated. Often, they are the ones that reflect stark realities. She remains a tragic figure, overshadowed by the grotesque savagery of her death more than the vibrant life she led. What about the true story of Princess Lamballe shocked you the most? Do you think history should focus solely on verified facts, or should we also delve into the powerful myths that accompany them? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and for more profound explorations into the dark and often misunderstood chapters of history, be sure to subscribe. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to support our work. Never miss an upload. Like this vid, drop a comment, and share it with others to help us grow this historical community. You think you understand the French Revolution, right? When envisioning this period, you might picture the infamous guillotine, the massive, fearsome blade ready to drop. But let's set aside the machinery of death for just a moment. I am about to unfold one of the most shocking executions in history, one that was carried out not by a machine, but by a furious mob wielding nothing more than their bare hands. This is the harrowing tale of Princess Lamballe, the closest friend of Marie Antoinette. What the mob did to her on September 3, 1792 is nearly unfathomable. We are going to delve into the verified facts surrounding her brutal murder and confront the stomach-churning legends that persist to this day. This is a story steeped in unwavering loyalty, absolute terror, and the terrifying speed at which a person can be transformed into a hated symbol that must be destroyed. Before she became public enemy number one, Lamballe led an extraordinary life. Born Marie-Thérèse Louise de Sauvacaron in 1749 into a wealthy Italian family, she married the Prince de Lamballe at just 17, a man whose fortune was among the largest in France. But tragedy struck when her husband died within a year, leaving her a widow at the shockingly young age of 18. This profound loss catapulted her into the treacherous world of the French court at Versailles, where she would meet another young foreigner, Marie Antoinette. Their friendship was instant and remarkable, a genuine connection amidst the duplicity of court life. In a palace full of artifice, they became each other's refuge. When Marie Antoinette ascended to the throne as queen, she appointed Lamballe as the superintendent of her household. This was a position of immense trust. Lamballe was not merely staff but family. However, such loyalty would come at a steep price. As public sentiment against Marie Antoinette grew, so did the hostility toward her friends. Disgusting pamphlets circulated throughout Paris, laden with vile accusations aimed at discrediting the queen's inner circle. The close bonds of friendship with women like Lamballe were twisted into scandalous rumors of illicit love affairs, inciting further outrage among the public. The quiet, dependable friend was painted as a supervillain labeled a corrupting influence, a spy for Austria and a traitor to France. A giant target was etched on her back, and the circumstances were about to escalate to unimaginable levels. When the storming of the Bastille occurred in 1789, the world turned upside down. The monarchy began to crumble, forcing aristocrats to flee for their lives, desperate to escape France. At that time, Princess Lamballe was safely ensconced in London. Her loved ones begged her, "Stay here! Don't go back, it's too dangerous." Yet her loyalty to Marie Antoinette was unyielding. The queen was in dire peril, and Lamballe felt compelled to return to her side. In a heart-wrenching letter, Marie Antoinette implored her to come back, stating, "I must live and die with her." With a heavy heart, Lamballe prepared her will. Fully aware that she was likely walking into her own death and traveled back to Paris, she stepped into a maelstrom of chaos. She was present when the royal family attempted a perilous escape and witnessed their fateful failure. She stood by on June 20, 1792, when a mob violently stormed the palace. Eyewitnesses later recounted that throughout the terrifying attack, Lamballe exhibited only concern for the safety of the queen, completely disregarding her own peril. Tragically, that fierce loyalty would cost her everything. On August 10, 1792, the monarchy was thoroughly dismantled. The royal family was imprisoned in the fortress known as the Temple, while Lamballe was separated from Marie Antoinette and crammed into La Force prison, one of the filthiest, most sinister places imaginable. By late August 1792, Paris descended into panic. An enemy army was reportedly marching toward the city, threatening to destroy it if any harm came to the royal family. This fear turned into a frenzy. Instead of cowering, the revolutionaries erupted with irrational fury, convinced that spies and traitors lurked in every prison cell, plotting their demise. Revolutionary leader Georges Danton shouted, "To conquer them, we must dare. Dare again. Always dare. And France is saved." But that daring quickly morphed into unimaginable horror. On September 2nd, the bloodletting commenced. For 5 consecutive days, mobs besieged the prisons and initiated one of the bloodiest killing sprees in history, now known as the September Massacres. They dragged men and women from their cells, conducted sham trials lasting only seconds, and then butchered them mercilessly in the courtyards. The streets ran red with blood. And where was Princess Lamballe during this chaos? Trapped within her cell, she could only listen to the horrifying screams echoing through the air. The unfortunate reality was that she was not just any prisoner. She represented everything the mob despised. It was only a matter of time before they came for her. On the fateful morning of September 3, 1792, they did. 2 guards entered her cell, where killings had been happening throughout the night. Now it was her turn to stand before the so-called tribunal.